Welcome back to Rav Pinson's podcast, where ancient wisdom meets modern man. Today's episode was sponsored by Aaron Yecheskel in honor of Hatzlacha in his Limud Torah. Today's episode is a special Lag BaOmer edition episode and the 27th in our Q&A series.
Who is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and why do we celebrate his passing on Lag BaOmer? How is his legacy somehow sweeten the harsh mourning period of the Omer?
What's the depth of that?
Yeah, what's the connection between Rabbi Shimon in the middle of the Omer? Somehow there's a changing from mourning to
Right.
the longer mourning.
So in general, this entire time period from Pesach to Shavuos constitutes a particular time. The Ramban calls it the Chol Hamoed. It's like a certain time period. What do you do during this time period? During this time period, we count the Omer. So the idea of counting. Now, counting has two elements to it. On the one hand, the count is an idea of din, judgment. Why? Because it represents, and this is the way you count every single day as a particular day. If I single out this particular thing, I say today is day one, or if I'm counting numbers, this is one, this is two, that means that one is one and two, and one is not two. Two is one, two is not one, and one is not two, which means I'm saying this is a particular thing. I'm defining it. Okay, that's what counting in general. The Medrash says, the Torah brings down that we're not supposed to count people, right? The Gemara also even brings down you're not supposed to count people. Why? Because when you count people, you're signaling them out, and that corrects a certain type of judgment, type of din. So counting is connected to din, the world of judgment, and singling, separation. On the other hand, the way we count it's also cumulative. So you don't say 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. You say today's 1, today's 2. So becoming today 2 is a summation, the sum total of 1 and 2. So you count today is the first day of the Omer, today is the second day of the Omer. But second cannot be if there's no 1. So theoretically, for example, there's a shita of Rishonim that say that every single day, the counting the Omer is a separate mitzvah. That's why you say a bracha every single day, because every single day is a separate mitzvah. If every single day is a separate mitzvah, then why, if you forget one day, you're not allowed to count? What's the logic? It's very simple. Not because not every single day is not a mitzvah. Every single day is a separate mitzvah. That's why you have to make a bracha every single day. It's a separate mitzvah, separate blessing. The reason why you can't count 3 if you didn't count 2 the second day is because you can't say today is the third day if there's no second day. Right? It's a cumulative number. So 3, I can't say today is 3 if there was no 2. Even though 3 has a separate mitzvah, but 3 by definition means that it's a third from the first. So it means that Sefira has these two elements that on one hand, it represents every single day as a singularity, a division, a separation, a davar nifra, the separate thing, and there's also the idea of the yichud, a unification of that. That's why also in the month of Iyar, the Arizal says that it's connected to Yud, Hey, and the Hey and the Vav. So one is Chesed, Yud K, that's kindness, giving, connection, Yud leading it to Hey, and the Hey and the Vav is the reverse, which the Zohar says every time there's reverse letters represents the idea of din, of judgment. So this dual nature of division and connection, or din and chesed, is also reflected in the idea of here. Here, literal here. Here is, on one hand, when you look at a person's hair, you see a klal, you see general, you see a person has hair, but then the Gemara says in Nida, with regards to Eiv, that and which is a fact, is that every single hair has a particular follicle, a particular place where it comes out of the head. And God forbid, 2 hairs to come out of the same place would be tremendous pain. So every year is unique, which means Cyrus, the idea of here, is specific, din, but also when it is as a collective, it represents rachamim, represents compassion. In the early sources about the entire time period between Pesach and Shavuos, which we call the times of Sefira, and it's a time of general, the way it's understood, it's a time of mourning for the students of Rabbi Akiva that passed away. If you look at the Gemara in Yevamos, which talks about the death of Rabbi Akiva, which talks about when a person is young, they had children, they should have children when they're older, and has students when they're younger, they have children when they're older. That's what the Gemara is talking about marriage. And then the Gemara then says that they passed away in this time period. But the Gemara doesn't actually fear us. The Gemara doesn't conclude that therefore it's a time of mourning. It just says this is what happened in this time period. Rabbeinu Yerucham, which is one of the earliest Rishonim that speak about this time of Sefira, because let's say, for example, the Rambam and the Rif do not mention that Sefira time is a time of mourning. They don't mention that I'll play music or have weddings or that conversation. There's no such. They're not mentioned. Rabbeinu Yerucham in Tola Southern brings it down, and he says that Sefira is a time of din, is a time of judgment, and because Sefira, this time period, is a time of din, a time of judgment, you shouldn't cut your hair. You should let your hair, and that's it. Only hair. It only talks about the cutting of the hair. You shouldn't cut your hair. Now, the Omer, which is the offering that was brought, that it's Sefira's Omer, you're counting from the time of the Omer that was brought, was a mincha sarim. Was a mincha that was an offering that was of sarim. Sarim is barley. Now, barley is a Michael Behema. Is in contrast to chita, in contrast to wheat. It's saying the Gemara says in the beginning of Psachim that sa'ira is connected to a food of, it's cheaper food, and it's considered food of animals, of animal food. Like the Gemara says with regards to a saita, that the Gemara says with a saita, the conclusion of the Gemara is he also ma'isa behema, since she did an act that's animalistic, therefore she should bring also an offering that's animalistic. Therefore, saita also brings the Michael Sarim. That's a mincha that's also given Sarim. Now, sa'ira, if you just hear the word, is connected to se'er, connected to the same word. That sa'ira, barley in Hebrew, is connected to the same word to hair. So sa'ira represents like hair. That it's a Michael Behemoth, it's an animal food. And Mashal writes that the reason for that, the reason why we bring Michael Behemoth, Michael Sarim, because from Pesach to Shavuos is when you're becoming a mensch. You're becoming a human being, which means you're going from a process of being animalistic to more refined in that same process. So the offering of barley, of sa'ira, is connected to that. Therefore, in the time of Sefira, which is a time of counting, you're not misaper. You don't take a haircut. So Sefira is also connected to the idea of taking a haircut. Now,
and the reason there's a progression is because in Shavuos there's a human food being brought.
Yes, correct. I should say that, right? And specifically, there's also it's chametz. Shtei alechem is brought from chametz. So you're going from matzah to Michael Sa'orim. Matzah is like food of the poor, for the slave, to animal food, to human food, which means there's a progression. You're moving towards a higher level of living. Ramosha David Vali Namdu writes that that the head here is connected to din. So therefore, the head here you should not cut in the time of din. We do not cut it off. Time of Sefira, which is like what the Rabbeinu Yerucham writes also, the same idea.
Also why at nighttime.
Correct. The same idea, correct. The beard here is chesed, so therefore you'll leave also the beard here, which is to mitigate the chesed by not cutting the hair of the head. Which is interesting because just a side note, the Italian Rabbanim, probably him as well, like the Ramchal and also the Ramipano, maybe, some services said maybe not, the Ramchal, that the Italian Rabbanim felt that you're not allowed to wear a beard in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Eretz Yisrael. So they actually didn't go with beards. But there's something about, I'm just giving this ideas. There's something about here, something about counting, something about Sa'ira that's connected to Cyrus, to here, connected to the offerings of animals. What is this idea? Ramosha Davali also writes that the word that oval is Avelos, which is morning is 33. So the first 33 days of the year. So why is it called why is it a time of din? What's the idea of a time of din? Why is it a time of din? And you find also in the Mishnah talks about an idios. That Rabbi Yochanan Manuri says that the Mishmar Shorashayim, the judgment, the din of the unrighteous, is from Pesach to Shavuos. From this time period, from Pesach to Shavuos, is the time of judgment. I think we spoke about once in the past that Rizal also talks about the neshamas that go down in Gilgal, different type of reincarnations, that they go from vegetation into animal during this time process as well. It's a time of din. Rav Kiva says Mishmar Shorashayim is Yud Beis Chodesh, but this is the idea of time of din. Historically, so we're not talking even about the students, the death of the students of Rabbi Kiva. It's generally a time of din. Historically, like the Aruch HaShulchan points out, and this is very clear, the Taz writes this, the time after Pesach was always a very hard time for Klal Yisrael, certainly in the medieval times. If you look at the Crusades, especially the first Crusades in 1096, or the story in 1648, Achvatat, in the Chmelensky revolt in Ukraine, all these terrible catastrophes that happened to Klal Yisrael historically happened between Pesach and Shavuos. And the very simple reason is, the external reason is, because that's when the weather starts changing. The weather starts becoming more friendly and spring. And that's the time of rebellion, and that's the time that the knights are able to go to battle. And unfortunately, the Jews always suffered in that time period. It's also the time. The blood libels, obviously, because that's after connected to Pesach. But the oimek, the real depth of why this is a time of din, is not because of that. These are just expressions of a metaphysical truth. The metaphysical truth, the spiritual reason why it's a time of din, is like that Rizal says. That Rizal reveals that on Pesach night, a person is in a state of halal avodah zarah, could be in a state that they're in a very low state. And the idea of Pesach is kipasach, something that happens miraculous. That Hashem takes us out, schleps us out of our own Egypt, our own constriction, our own Memphis Shire Tumah, our own 49 levels of Tumah, and pulls us to a very high place. And shows us a picture of the possibility of who we could become. This is called Gadlus Rishon and Gadlus Sheni. We have the beginning of the Seder, we have Gadlus Rishon, and by Afikoim we have Gadlus Sheni, which is that we have a picture of our greatness. Physical greatness, spiritual greatness, what it means to live in a world of clarity, what it means to live in a world of purpose and of meaning and of light and with a clear vision of what we have to be doing in this world. That's what we're given on Pesach. That's the vision that we have. Pesach, Hashem pulls us out. Then immediately after Pesach starts the time that we fall, which is katnus, a state of constriction. But the intention of the constriction is that we should long and create the proper vessels to receive the godless, the greatness that we're going to receive on the night of Shavuot, on Shavuot's morning, which is called godless shlishi, the godless of Keser. This is what really what it says that Ran brings out in the name of the Medrash, and the Sefira Chinuch brings it down, that the idea of the counting, the 49 days of counting, is counting down to get to the point of Shavuos, which means it's almost like you have a child, and let's say it's a 10-year-old, and you give them a toy, and they break the toy immediately because they didn't work on the toy, they didn't like desire it. It's like a new toy, and they're very excited. They take it cheaply and they break it. Then you say, "Listen, I want to give you the toy again." You buy for them, you show it to them, you say, "This is the toy I want to give you, but I need you to earn it. Show me that you really want it. Show me that you're really going to earn it." And then when you finally give them the toy, they're going to cherish the toy. This is similar to the idea of the process of the difference between Pesach and Shavuos. On Pesach, Hashem gifts us greatness and says, "This is the picture I want to give you. But I only want to give it to you to show you what you could become and how you could live. But now I want you to desire it. I'm going to take it away, but the purpose of the taking it away is like a separation. And it's like a katna state. Katan comes from the word katua, something that's broken, small, that there's no connection. And the purpose is to bring out greater longing that when we're going to receive the godless, the higher level of receiving, it's going to be earned and it's going to be one, we're going to have the desire for it. It's similar that what the Zohar says, and this is Parshas Amar really, the Zohar says that the 7 weeks of Sefira corresponds to the 7 days of Nida, separation of Nida. And just like the separation of a Nida is when a husband and wife separate from each other, and there has to be certain type of bedikas, certain types of inspections, so eventually a person should become clean so you can have intimacy again. And like Reb Shimon bar Yochai says, that the intention of the separation is l'chavish al baila, is only for the intention that it should create greater desire. During this time of Sefira Soiber, what do? We do bedikas. We do checking. What does checking mean? So there's 2 times of the year that were dedicated for particular introspection, which is ER and Elul. Right, so for 2 times a year, they're going to say, okay, this is the time of month that you have to do introspection. What's the difference? What's the difference between the introspection and the cheshbon nefesh, and a person's accounting to the soul that a person has to do during the month of ER versus the month of Elul? Is that in Elul, it's about relationships between you and another person. That's what you're thinking about. That's when Elul, before Rosh Hashanah comes, you have to ask forgiveness from other people. It's about affecting change and working on your own midas between man and man. Now in Iyar, it's ben Adam Latzmai. It's not ben Adam Lachaver. It's between man and his own self. There's one way of thinking about how I'm interacting with other people. Am I kind to other people? Am I judgmental to other people? Am I speaking lashon? Whatever. That's in terms of a relationship. But then there's a really deeper question, which is more b'dikas pnim. It's like an inner question. How is my chesed in my life? Am I really a kind person? Do I have good discipline? Am I really humble? Do I really have self-confidence? Am I really connected? Do I really have mitzvah yisod? Do I have a good receptivity? Could I receive? These are like questions that you ask yourself to yourself. It's not about in relationship to other. It's a question you have to ask yourself. And that's the time of bdika. And then when finally comes Shavuos, you'll be prepared, like the child that's prepared to receive the toy, and now it become in an integrated way. And obviously, life is spiraling. The cycles of the year spiral, and every year it's a deeper level. So what is Lag BaOmer? Lag BaOmer is, in this construct that we're understanding, Lag BaOmer it's the day of the supermajority of the days of Sefira has ended. Which is, if you take 49, you divide it into 3, so the 32, it's the 16 and 3/4, the 32 day, the 33rd day would be the that's the height of the separation. What does that mean? Remember, if I give you an analogy of this, let's say you have a person that you're very close to, let's say your spouse or your child, and they're leaving for 10 days. Okay, they're leaving their house for 10 days, and you really miss them, you really want to be with them. So day 1, 2, and 3, and let's say 4, you still remember that they just left. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're preparing yourself for them to come back. The hardest day for you to feel is the midpoint, because it's not so close to when they left. It's not yet so close to they're coming back. So you can say, okay, they're going to be away for 10 days. It's only the first 4 days. Okay, so I'm still feeling that affects it. Oh, they're coming back only in 4 days. But what happens in the midpoint, where that's really the harshest place? And the harshest place, which is the strongest place of longing. And here's the paradox. The place that awakens and arouses and draws forth the highest levels of yichud is precisely in the place of the greatest place of separation. The kaveh, the yearning, creates the kav, creates the line, creates the connection. Wherever you feel the greater absence, that bechitzoni is an external level of vessel. That's the place of the greatest separation. But in the panemius level, in the internal level, that's the greatest place of connection. So when we talk about Shavuos as Matan Torah, That Shavuos is the day of giving the Torah, which is B'yom Chasun Nasai, Matan Torah. The day of Chasun, the day of getting married, is Matan Torah. Then the full Matan Torah is Yom Kippur. When we talk about Shavuos as Matan Torah, as a Chasun, as a day of wedding, that's in the reveal level. That's when finally we're clean, we're readied, and we can receive Kasiyit L'cha. We can receive the Keser. We're ready to receive. That's on the level of Or, on the level of revelation. But on the level, that's a level even at Kli, on the level external. On the level of the Or, on the level of light, internal, Panemius, in the Panemiustic level, on a very internal level, the height of separation is actually the point of the greatest longing, the greatest connection. That's why on the 33rd day, which is Lag BaOmer, which the 33rd word of the Torah is Toiv. And what is that Toiv? What's that Toiv referring to? That's the Toiv HaGados. That's the hidden light. In general, Toiv, the letter Tes, is, as Zohar says, is a letter that's bent in, which means that it's hiding. That's the hidden letter. But particularly, we're talking about the Oregonos Tzaddikim, the hidden light. What's the hidden light? The hidden light that's revealed on the 33rd day is the light that shows that sometimes in the Bakim Achi Choshech, in the place of the greatest darkness, that's where you can actually receive the greatest light. That's what Beresh is borrowed, Beresh. So it's brought down in Tzaddikim, right, that Beresh is Rabbi Shimon Yochai. Beresh is Shimon Yochai, or Yitzchak ben Shlomo, which is the Arizal, or Rabbi Saul Baal Shem, which is Beresh, is also Beresh, also the Free Rabbi is Yitzchak ben Sar, ben Shalom. That what is the Zohar? What's the Zohar revealing? Is we said the Yom Chasanasai, the day of a wedding, is Matan Torah. Now, in Gemara, a wedding is called Hilula. This world is like a Hilula, which means a wedding day. Wedding day is called Hilula. In the Zohar, Hilula is called the day of a person's passing. And so, what are we celebrating on Lag BaOmer? We're celebrating the Hilula of Rashbi. So the Hilula of Rashbi is that the passing of the Rashbi or the wedding of the Rashbi. It's the passing of the Rashbi, but on the deeper level, on the Chetzonistic level, on the external level, he passed away. The physical level, he seems to have passed away. But on the deeper level, the previous level, is a deeper level of Yichud, a deeper level of revelation. And this is what the Or of the Rashbi. The Or of Rashbi, that it's connected to Reb Shimon, and specifically even to Reb Shimon. The idea of Shimon is, according to the Ravid, which is one of the commentators of Sefer Yetzirah, not the Arizal has a different structure, but according to the Ravid, the month of year is connected to Shimon. And Shimon is Aaron Zalachov writes that Shimon is Shem Oven, the place of the sin, the place of the darkness, or the way the Torah describes it is when it talks about the Shimon Levi says B'soidom Atavanashi. Yaakov says B'soidom, and the secret. I don't want to enter into the secret. What's the secret? What's the secret? The secret is that specifically in the Makam HaChoshech, B'soidom, that's the secret. Shama Oven, in the place of the oven, the place of the darkness, the place of the sin. The secret is that in Dafka, in that place, specifically in the place of the Choshech, where it seems to be Choshech, where it seems to be dark, and it seems to be so dark that you can't see any light, and it's not close to the beginning, it's not close to the end. That's when the Oregonos is revealed. That's when the hidden light is revealed, because that draws out the Chukka, that draws out the greatest level of Dveikus. Dafka in the Makam HaChoshech. And that's why some of the things that we do on Lag BaOmer is like play with a bow and arrow. Because what is the idea of the bow and arrow is the further you pull back, the higher it flies. You think that the further you're pulling back, the lower you're going. But it's actually telling you, but if you release it, if you allow yourself to be released in that place where it seems the most separation, is the place you can climb the highest place. That's why people go out to the Sada, you go out to the field. You go out specifically to the field. Because the whole idea of Golus, there's a mashal of the Baal Shem, there's a metaphor the Baal Shem brings down, that Golus, it says that Ruach HaKodesh, on some level Ruach HaKodesh is more possible today in Golus than in Gula. It's more possible today in exile outside of Israel than in Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because in the place of Gula, in the place of redemption, in the place of Eretz Yisrael, in the place of light, it's a place of order. Place of light, everything has its own place. You're the minister, you get to speak to the king 3 times a day. You're the servant, you get to put him, bring him your food. Your person has no relationship to the king, you never see him. Maybe once every 10 years you get to see the king. But when the king's in the field, when his malach wasada, when the king's actually in the field, in the place of Golus, so then he's approachable. It's the specifically because it's choshech, because there's no order, and it's the or toiv is only ganos. It's hidden. It's not clear. Because it's not clear, it means the king is everywhere. The king is in that place of the darkness. So therefore, you have accessibility in the place of the darkness, and you can have Ruach HaKodesh in the place of the darkness. You can have actually openness, expansiveness, and clarity specifically in the place of choshech, even higher than the place of the Or. The place of dark is even higher than the place of the Or. This is the oimik of Lag BaOmer. This is the depth of what Lag BaOmer is. Why it's specifically connected to the world of the Rashbi, to the world of Rav Shimon, who specifically hides in a cave, representing to going down into that place of the choshech, in the place of the darkness. And in that place of the darkness, where it seems the absence of all life, that's where the Zohar is created. And this is what this is why the Zohar is redemption. The Zohar is the Or of dveikus, of connection, of Ruach HaKodesh and connectivity that we have even in the place of the choshech. And that's why the Zohar itself was revealed specifically not in the time of the Tanoim, and Dafka in medieval Europe, Dafka in the place of the choshech. That's when the Zohar was revealed, specifically in those places where eventually became a tremendous amount of darkness. In the Dark Ages, Kipshuta, literally, that's when the Zohar was revealed, because that's the Or that holds us, that allows us to exist and allows us to be connected, and knowing that even though it's dark, we have tremendous possibility, because there's no rules when it's dark. When it's light, there's rules, there's order and there's structure. When there's darkness and the king is in the field and everyone's running, there's no order, and there's no order, so there's accessibility. So you can jump, you can run, and that's the Or that's revealed in the Mokim of Din, in the place of Din, in the place of absence, in the place of separation, in the place of death even. Reb Shimon passes away, in the place of that death, and whatever the metaphor of certainly what death is, in that place to find the Or. And that's why it's the Matan Torah Pnimi Torah, the giving of the Torah, of the Zohar, and the celebration of the Zohar, the celebration of the Seidos HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah, is specifically connected to Lag BaOmer.
Thank you for listening to Rav Pinson's podcast. To submit questions or to sponsor a future episode, please email ravpinsonpodcast@gmail.com. The link is in the description below.